Decided we'll watch the highlights later.
All right, stand for the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you for coming. Short time for topics from the floor that are not on the agenda. If you'd like to come forward, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Planning Commission, Stephen Toskey, Citizen St. Helens. I'm coming forward to express my concern about land use planning that's happening outside of the public view and outside of the Planning Commission. And that in particular, there's a subcommittee currently operating within the city that is studying whether to rezone certain of our lands. There was an initial draft recommendation made in a joint city council planning commission meeting, which also is not a government sanctioned meeting, where there was one of the recommendations was to look at rezoning light industrial land to mixed use commercial land. And the unintended consequence of that is once we have mixed use commercial land, we end up getting potentially apartment complexes and things like that that come in here. And there's a lot of push now from Salem to force multi-unit, ultra low income multi-unit development onto cities. So it's rolling out of Salem. And so rezoning our land has that potential risk. The company that was hired as a company looking at economic potential of our land. And when I looked at their initial analysis, they really did not have any basis for their initial analysis for rezoning our land from light industrial to mixed use commercial. They didn't have any data that supported their initial conclusions. And Commissioner Shoemaker asked if they had considered the work from anywhere economy and whether that was something they were considering in their analysis, and they said no. And my concern is this: our land use planning needs to be in the public view. Our land use planning needs to be something that the people can understand what is happening, why it's happening, and have public input about it. The people have eyes, the people have ears, and the people have minds, and the people have education, the people have experiences, all of which can come to bear in decisions like, should we be rezoning our land from light industrial to something else? And keeping away from the people, the process of that decision, I believe, is not according to our law, first of all. It's certainly not according to what is right for our people, because I could tell you there are a lot of people in this town that are very concerned about the direction of our town. And what I see is we have a committee that's meeting in secret that is doing planning outside of view and then maybe coming forward with a plan. So I'm going to urge this planning commission to at least place on its agenda a discussion of what is going on in those meetings, what is happening, and allowing our people to come forward and say, I have opinions about this. I understand that planning commissioner is participating in these secret meetings, and I think they should hear from the people. So I don't think that planning should be occurring in secret. And I don't think that planning should be occurring on secret meetings. And I don't think rezoning should be happening in that. It should all be in the public view. And I know that these are decisions that are outside of your control, but you do control your agenda. And you do control what you can say to our people. Thank you.
Anyone else have a topic on the floor, not on the agenda? Right, does anybody have any comments on the minutes from last meeting? Not, someone make a motion to
Make a
accept?
motion to accept the minutes.
Second,
Have you vote?
aye.
You vote? Aye. Okay, we have nobody online, right? Just us,
Planning
just
commission.
us four.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask you. Okay, so now we have the public meeting. I'm a little confused to how to do this one, but I'm gonna go, oh, not this one. Right, never mind. Okay, time is now 6:06 PM. The public hearing is now open. This is a quasi judicial land use hearing. Subject of this hearing is a request for a variance. The subject property is identified in the county assessor's map as lot 4305 on map 4N 1W4DD. The applicant is Columbia County Habitat for Humanity. The owner is the same. Because quasi judicial proceedings require the observance of certain procedural formalities, it will take a few moments to cover some preliminary matters and required statements. Does any member of the commission wish to declare a potential or actual conflict of interest or bias in this matter?
I'd like to say that I have volunteered for the local Columbia County Habitat for Humanity, but I don't think it'll ever any bearing on my own.
We am part of the Columbia County or Oregon Habitat for Humanity and Home Advisory Council. But I do not have any connection to this project.
Anybody else see a problem with any of those? Any member of the commission? Wish to declare any ex parte communications or site visits? Anyone from the audience object to the ability of a commissioner to make a fair decision? Seeing none. The general order of proceedings will be as follows. Required statements, staff report, applicant's presentation, those in favor of the application, neutral testimony, those opposed, rebuttal by applicant, final questions, according to the record, deliberations and decision. The following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to the city code ORS 197.7975. The following is the list of the applicable substantive criteria for this decision. City of St. Helens Municipal Code 17.108.0501 criteria for granting a variance. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria as prescribed. Further criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulation which the person believes applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue, including constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval in this hearing in person or in writing, or failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the approving authority an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to LUBA, the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue, and precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, tonight we're looking at a Habitat for Humanity variance. We're on South 12th Street, specifically on a vacant lot, 554 South 12th Street. It's a standard St. Helens lot, 58 by 100. Part of the early 1900s subdivision. There's some photos on the staff report. One, it's surrounded by single family dwellings on both sides and across the street. So in 2021, this property was subject of a similar variance, so it might look really familiar to people who were on the commission. I guess it was just Dan.
Just me?
Maybe, yeah, Ginny wasn't on the commission at that time.
Never.
That variance has since expired and the previous owner never moved forward with construction, so here we are again. So the applicants requested a 2-foot front setback. On the face of it is pretty extreme, but when you look at the circumstances of the lot, I think it makes a lot of sense. So the standard front setback is 20 feet in this zoning district, the R5 zoning district.
Can I ask you
Yeah.
a question about the previous application? It's pretty much the same setback.
It's a totally different proposal. The previous application was a two-story, zero front setback.
Sorry, I
So
thought it
this
was
actually has a
similar.
2-foot setback in the front.
And a smaller home.
And a much smaller home. It's a single level, and we'll talk about that when we get to the criteria, but it's a single level, 2-bedroom, 1,000 square foot home that's proposed on the lot. So pretty much as small as you can get without building a 1-bedroom. So there's a couple exceptions to the code that this would need. One is the setback variance, but our code also talks about eaves. And it says that eaves cannot, they're allowed to project into required front yards, but not more than 4 feet. And you have to maintain a 3-foot setback from the property line with your eave for fire protection. So in this case, we're asking for an exception to that eave rule as well. And then our code also says no building should be closer than 3 feet to a property line. And obviously this is gonna be 2 feet. So there's an exception to the front setback, but also these other minor code exceptions too are kind of built in to the request. So why? So it's really not typical for a property to have encumbrances like this. So this is a 15-foot wide public sanitary storm easement that runs diagonally through the property. Typically public easements like this, you know, sometimes you see storm lines or sewer lines that run along the property line so that the easement corresponds with the setback and there's not an encumbrance. In this case, you have a storm line that runs down basically the center of the lot diagonally, creating a really difficult building envelope for this particular lot. And on top of that, along the south property line, there's a sewer easement, also 15-foot wide that runs sort of along the property line, but at a slight tilt. So this creates challenges. Obviously, our engineering department doesn't want any encumbrances into their easement so that they can get equipment in there and maintain the line if there's a need to. On top of that, they also don't want eaves to encroach into that easement with an aerial encroachment because equipment needs the full clear space. So there's a recommended condition once we get there that talks about having a surveyor verify that no portion of the building, including eaves, would go into the easement.
Is that normal
For eaves or,
for easements to not, when you have an easement, to not allow anybody to have anything in that space? Is that
Yes.
normal?
Yeah.
And all the time I've been in this room, I guess we've never had one quite like this.
yeah, it's a pretty extreme case. So as with all variances, we have our 5 criteria for approval. The first one is that the variance will not be detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood. So in this case, we have an 80-foot wide right of way along 12th Street. And this kind of darker color is showing where the actual developed road is within that extra wide 80-foot wide right of way. So it's skewed towards the opposite side of this house. And so there's 45 feet of undeveloped space between the roadway itself and the property line. So there's a lot of air, light, and space that's sort of built in because of this extra wide right of way. And so from an appearance standpoint to other properties along this street, this reduced setback is not going to look any different because there's still just such a big clear area. So that's one thing staff notes in that meeting that criteria. And then the other thing we talk about is parking. So we're reducing the front setback, and that's typically where you would have a driveway. So we wanted to make sure that built into the conditions that this property could still meet the minimum parking requirements for a single family dwelling on site so that the parking doesn't, spill out into adjacent properties. And they've shown how they can meet the parking area here. So they're showing that as being met. And that's also a condition if the commission wants to recommend approval. So criterion B talks about special and unique circumstances. That's an easy one. We have a gigantic storm easement and sewer easement that bisect the property. Let's see, I talked about the eaves. Criteria C, we have to make a finding that the applicable standards are being maintained to the greatest extent that's reasonably possible. We talked about the size of the house being 1,000 square feet. It's relatively small, 2-bedroom, single level. The applicant talks about in their narrative, and they're here, they can talk more about it, but they mentioned that the reason they're choosing a single level home is because a lot of their clientele are people with disabilities, and they want people to be able to age in place. And so their argument is that this is kind of the maximum size they can build with the encumbrances as shown. Existing physical and natural systems will not be adversely affected. If we can maintain free and clear space of those easements, we can maintain our facilities and make sure that the storm and sewer are adequately accessible. So really, I think this variance is balancing the need to access the utilities while also allowing reasonable use of the land. That's kind of the trade-off here. Not self-imposed because the existing, these utilities were pre-existing. They didn't put them there. That's a way we can meet that criteria. We talked about, I have a recommended condition number 2, that the applicant needs to verify license, or with a licensed surveyor that there's no encroachments into those easements and that they meet the parking requirements on site. Those are my 2 recommended conditions in addition to our boilerplate time condition. So that's all I have.
I failed to mention, 2021, Habitat asked me to look at the land for wetlands, and there was a wetland considered in the back. It's behind that easement, so it couldn't build anywhere near it anyway, so. Yeah.
Okay.
And you mentioned it here. You mentioned here that wetlands.
How close are the other houses that are adjacent to the front?
Yeah, but there's a map that'll show the footprint of the house, the other houses around there.
To look and see, like, are the other houses all set back, or
Yeah.
all the houses kind of close to the street?
I don't have a map that shows that, but the applicant talks about, and I know just down the road, you can kind of see it in this photo, but a few houses down, there are houses that are also close to the front property line because they have wetlands in the back. And so maybe that's
So it's not completely skewed.
Yeah.
It's not gonna look like it's out there on the starting line.
right. Plus you have the undeveloped right of way that sort of acts as a quasi front.
But nobody's had street vacation. There's been no street vacation or anything there.
But along,
There are some closer to the wetlands we were just talking about. A portion of that right of way was vacated.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's on paper, it's really not apples and oranges comparison for those properties on the south side. But to the layman, not looking at the paper and the processes behind it, it does give the illusion of a similar profile.
Okay, it doesn't look out of place, because that's always what I can't remember the term Jennifer used it, the lay of the neighborhood. It's like, you want to not have it be just so glaringly different or totally offset, but if it's similar, then it's not going to stick out and make it a target for whatever. Where the neighbors go, why did they let them do that there? But if they're 2 feet back and you had a previous one that was on the lot line that was approved.
Yeah, and also just that extra 45 to 50 feet that will still be undeveloped.
There's a big buffer.
Yeah.
Did any of the neighbors respond?
No. I don't think we had any responses to the last one either.
I can't remember.
One thing that living in a Habitat home, full disclosure, the neighbors came around and they were so happy that there wasn't any vagrants and there wasn't any shenanigans happening, that they were pleased as punch to have somebody monitoring the corner as opposed to other unsavory activities. The vacant lots tend to be not a good thing to have in your neighborhood. They'd rather have somebody that that as a homeowner living in their neighborhood.
I had to dodge a lot of dog poop on that vacant piece.
That happens to what people do. I watch them outside my window, just call me Miss Scratch.
Deer poop too, surprisingly.
Lots of them up there, lots,
I
but,
didn't realize associate planner was so hazardous.
but she was.
I guess.
So hazardous.
That was my thing. So we have the applicant on Zoom, but I know you're here representing Jennifer Anderson's also on Zoom too. Just,
And she asked me to come and
oh, great.
talk.
Okay. Sorry, Dan, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Didn't realize.
My name is David Bond. I am past president of the Columbia County Habitat out here and worked for Habitat in Portland for a number of years and did a lot of design work. I'm responsible for that drawing up there. And it's until we get the actual survey, that diagonal line is kind of vague, you know, and we're gonna make sure that we meet all the criteria. The thing about the house, first about the neighborhood, when we talk about the neighborhood, I believe all the houses on that side of the street are all single level. I'm pretty sure. And so this won't look out of place in that. In terms of the house, it's not just a 2-bedroom, but this is an ADA adaptable home. We don't know what clients we're gonna get in there. And I've been certified by the home builders and AARP as the aging and specialist. So I know to keep all the, we can convert this house. If we need somebody in a wheelchair, we could make this work. We're just not doing that right now because since a family hasn't been selected yet, we don't know what their specific needs are gonna be, and the needs can vary so much, you know, capability is such a broad term. So, you know, and I know you've all seen the quality of the homes that Columbia County has, and I don't think we've had a problem with, you know, creating a good quality product, you know, that's gonna house a family. Any questions you have? I don't really have much. I think you're pretty familiar with what's happening here.
How firm are we with the easement where the what is it? Is a water storm line? Yeah, I mean, could that be, we're talking about small margins here, so.
Well, in talking with Denny about it, I think we both agree that if something comes up with the survey, we'll make some adjustments in the plan or how we cite it or to make it meet the requirement, you know, until we get that actual information.
That being single level, it's pretty easy to make an adjustment.
It'll be pretty easy to make an adjustment, yeah,
You're talking about making it slightly smaller than,
maybe slightly smaller, moving it a little, or, you know, just.
You can also reduce the eave size slightly too. We've seen 1-foot eaves on homes if that's a way to make it fit. And I just wanted to add too, there's also a storm structure just off the property that they were using. So there's kind of 2 different storm structures and those were marked at one point. So they kind of, it's not just a random location. It's based on other storm structures that are offsite.
yeah.
It's fairly accurate. It's not totally.
Yeah, like you said, it's a matter of small dimensions.
It's curiosity.
Yeah, me too. Unless anyone has any questions, I don't really have anything to offer.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve it with staff recommendation.
We gotta,
We gotta
Oh,
go.
sorry, my bad.
almost.
Everybody was doing this. I didn't know what this meant.
Is there anyone in the audience to support of the application or? You wanna come up and?
No.
Okay, I support it.
Okay.
Wonderful cause, looked at it before as part of work. It is a difficult site.
Could you state your name for the record since we've got a comment now?
Yeah,
Sabrina Moore.
all right.
Are you nearby the the lot?
No.
Is anybody, well, there's nobody,
Um,
proposing, so there's
we have
nobody else here.
people on Zoom
Oh.
too, so just announce.
Is anyone else supporting on Zoom? Supporting a proposal?
Hello?
Or- Yes,
Hi, Kanika.
Hi, hello, my name is Kanika Peterson, 155 Clark Street, St. Helens. And I'm in support of the application. And I don't know if you guys remember or not, but this piece of property used to belong to the city of St. Helens. And I would say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the city had this piece of property for sale. And back then, Habitat for Humanity actually request to purchase the property, but at the price that the city thought that the city can get. So the proposal was denied, and Mr. John McGee purchased the property later on. So we are very happy to receive this property from Mr. John McGee, and from blank piece of property that the city don't know what to do with, and now it's going to become a home for somebody who need a home. I think we all should be in support of that. Thank you.
anyone else in support on Zoom? Anyone opposing on Zoom? Anyone neutral on Zoom? All right. Does the commission have any final questions of the applicant or staff? Jenny, I was sure there was a statement about the weapons in the back, either the owner or yours. You guys read into it because I knew it was. Anyway, it doesn't affecting any of this because it's all east of the easement, so. Okay. You can sit down now and we're done with the public in a second here. Hearing no further questions from the commission, no further responses from staff, the public record is closed. This matter is returned to the table for deliberations and oral discussion.
I need not.
Too much to discuss here.
Need not deliberate.
I'm so used to so much conflict when it's quiet, I don't know what to do.
Well,
No, I just,
When it was probably forced before, we all saw it to be,
seems pretty cut and dry,
yeah, easy, even with the zero.
right?
What's a dead end street? For now,
Oh, yeah, and I mean,
not very far from the end.
I have not been to the site.
You want to make a motion? Yep.
Comply with staff recommendation.
Who's making the motion?
Are you? Okay, so move.
Second.
How do you vote?
I,
All right.
Okay. Do we need to?
Yeah.
Yeah, who would make a motion for the chairperson to sign the final
so
decision?
move.
Second.
I,
All right.
Okay. Pass. Final written decision of the planning commission may be appealed to the city council. The notice of decision will be mailed to all persons who testified or submitted comments, and the appeal deadline will be included in the notice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
I hope it happens this time.
Yeah, right.
well, it just might take a little longer.
It'll take a little longer.
You've got your hands full. How's it coming in Vernonia?
We're getting closed in, gonna beat the winter.
Oh, good.
Yeah, this is the next project on the schedule.
While you're getting Scappoose ready.
It's got food ready. Yeah,
Exciting
that
time.
was scary.
Exciting time.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
The time is now 6:30 PM. The public hearing is now open. This is Quadrat. I can't speak today. Send me some water. I was gonna call it a different kind of hearing. This is a quasi judicial land use hearing. The subject of this hearing is a request for a conditional use permit, unlisted use and an access variance. The subject property is identified in the county assessor's map as lot 300 on map 4N1W9BB. The applicant is Aiken Architecture and Design LLC. The owner is Columbia County Mental Health. Because quasi judicial proceedings require the observance of certain procedural formalities, we'll take a few moments to cover some preliminary matters and required statements. Does any member of the commission wish to declare a potential or actual conflict of interest or bias in this matter?
I'm working on designing the power for their campus. My job, but I don't know if it gives me any.
No, we didn't get any paperwork.
Okay, that's.
No,
You'll know why in a minute here.
because there's another note in here.
Any member of the commission wish to declare any ex parte communications or site visits? Sites, what you just said. I always get those mixed up. It sure sounds similar, don't they? Does anyone from the audience object to the ability of commissioner to make a fair decision? On Zoom? Generally, order proceedings will be as follows: required statements, staff report, applicant's presentation, those in favor of the application, neutral testimony, those opposed, rebuttal by applicant, final questions, close of the record, deliberations, and decision. Following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to the city code and ORS 197.7975. The following is a list of the applicable substantive criteria for this decision. St. Helens Municipal Code 17.32.040, 17.84.150, and 17.100.050. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria as described, or any criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulation which the person believes applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue, including constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval in this hearing in person or in writing, or failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the approving authority an opportunity to respond to the issue, precludes appeal to the LUBA, the Land Use Board of Appeals, on that issue, and precludes an action of damages in circuit court. Staff report.
Thank you, Chairperson. So CCMH, when we scheduled this, they said that was not a date they could attend. We had already sent the notices out. And so we said, well, we can continue it. If it's okay with you. We want to make sure that does not contribute to the 120-day rule. As the time most arguments are given by the state to come up with a final decision on these kind of matters. So we opened the public hearing because we're asking you to make at least one decision, and that is simply to motion that this matter be continued to a date and time certain in this room, which would be October 8th at 6:05 p.m.
You couldn't attend because it was on August 32nd. Because that's what it says, received on August 32nd.
Oh, yeah, but I crossed it out.
So it's supposed to be void.
Yeah, it was received on a day that doesn't exist on the calendar. That shows you what kind of day it was whenever I stamped that. So, and then we'll have more substance, full staff report at the next meeting. So that's what we're requesting at this time at the request of CCMA is to continue that. And we're looking for a motion to do so.
We have a motion to continue
Continue on
To- over 8.
October 8th,
At 6:05 p.m.
6:05 p.m.
We have a second.
I did. I,
How do you vote?
Aye.
All right.
What do I do now? Noise? Everything?
That's it.
Okay, hopefully it's not too full of agenda next month. You know? That we do.
I don't, not that I recall.
I don't have anything.
Honestly, it may, the CCMH thing may be better for next month than this month, because there's a few things on this month, so.
All right, so we got through the hearings. Architectural review at 325 Strand Street.
Thanks. Yeah. So I will just point out, I'm gonna cover the basics of this, and then we also have Will online. He's representing the applicant. So if there are questions, this isn't really a formal public hearing. I just want to point out that he is available.
Are you, this is this be administratively decided, you're coming to us for input?
Yeah, so the way your review of this tonight would be incorporated into a decision would be, there's gonna be a subsequent site development review that they would submit to establish the uses, and then we would take your recommendations for the architectural stuff and incorporate that into that decision.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if I answered your question in that, but
For leanings.
yeah, you would make a motion with all of your recommendations. Yeah, so.
I thought you were just looking for thumbs up and
Input.
input, you know.
Yeah, it's good to incorporate it in.
Okay.
I don't know, we've typically done motions.
All right.
Yeah.
Just want to know what you want.
Okay, so 325 Strand Street is where we're at. That's the old Grace's Annex building next to the former antique store. This was the subject of a variance very recently, so it should be semi-familiar. We received a building permit to remodel just the existing footprint of the building, so single level commercial remodel. And it's a bit tricky, and we'll get into why. But let's just talk generally. So they want to remodel the entire commercial building in phases so that the building itself remains intact. And the reasoning for that is that they want to utilize our parking exemption, our parking exemption. So they want to divide the existing building into two separate commercial suites, which you can see here. So this top is the existing facade. So it's got kind of this old overhead door, and there's a really old curb cut. So at some point they used vehicles that could enter, and then it's got the existing storefront. So that's the existing facade. And this is what they want to do with it at the bottom here. So they want to divide it into two commercial suites. So again, uses will come later. That's a subsequent application. We're just focused on the exterior of the building.
Is this now a single story building?
Yeah, so I have photos here. This is a itch photo. Does that look familiar?
Seen it once or twice.
Yeah, and then this is what it looked like in 2014. So you can see there's a curb cut here and a vehicle access, yeah. So they basically want to take this storefront, make some changes to it, and then replicate identical storefronts for both suites. So they're in the building permit submittal. There are changes to all of the facades, which would be enough to trigger your review for architectural guidelines compliance. But we're mainly focused on the east facing facade because that's the main viewable facade. But there's a second page in here that shows the other facades as well. So they're, you know, removing some man doors, windows, things like that. So just backing up in case you all don't remember the history, in 2020, the building was partially demoed to remove some interior walls and see how much of the building was salvageable. That work was partially done, but the building was left to exposed to weather, and then the building just decayed over time because they left some of the interior was exposed.
Some of the siding, especially on the south side, was removed and left exposed for several years as well.
Yeah, so then we fast forward to 2024, around the time that we started our infrastructure project. The contractors were concerned because they were seeing buckling occurring in the building and they didn't want to have the building collapse and injure their workers. So our building official basically said, you need to shore this thing up or demo it, and gave them a deadline. So they did some shoring work. And then now that shoring work was allowed to exist for 1 year. We hit that 1 year point, and now we're seeing movement to keep the building alive. So the weird thing about this is that the guidelines are divided into kind of two categories, new construction and restoration of existing buildings. And this one is sort of weird. What do you call it? Is it new construction or is it restoration?
Is there any aspect of it can be still remaining after the do-over?
Well, they're phasing the interior construction so that there are always, I mean, I don't want to say this wrong, but that there are always 3 walls and a roof. So they're kind of doing each wall separately and their phasing plan includes that. So they've made some major accommodations to make sure that it's never not a building.
I'm just wondering because, you know, we're gonna have pretty much it all is gonna be all replaced.
Yes, yes. By the end of this project, there's going to be very little, if not anything at all, what was there.
In order to keep their parking thing, they have to go through this process.
This is the route that they are electing to go down. Yes.
So I didn't see I'm sorry.
Anyway, we can work around that because it seems, you know, kind of silly, absurd almost, that, you know, you're replacing a wall and then have to go to the next wall, next wall. To me, it would make more sense just to knock it down. Start fresh, because it's gonna all be a fresh. So, I mean, we're kind of just making it difficult for folks to do what they're trying to do. This is,
Well, they don't, they can demo it and build a new building. They don't want to provide the parking that's required
Yeah.
for that. Yeah, so we're not making it difficult. They've elected to go down this route. We just want to clarify.
yeah, but it's just,
They took on the encumbrance to save the park.
Yes.
I didn't see a phasal plan in here.
Well, do you mean the actual building plans?
Well, you said they're gonna do that in phases, but I don't see any phases. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's irrelevant to the architectural review. Ultimately, this is what the building looks like now and what will be. But they're
I mean,
pretty
it's
detailed.
today phase 1 and then tomorrow when we do something that's phase 2 or it seems like you'd have to have it a little more, have it defined. What,
It's defined in the building permit.
okay,
That says, you know, this wall goes, then this is rebuilt, then this, then that.
okay.
But the building permit shows facade changes. So these are architectural changes to a non-historic landmark. That's why we have to come before you.
Gotcha. We're not here to talk about the phasal remodel to keep the,
Yeah, let us worry about that.
well, it was, you know, it's red here. To think about that, so.
Well. Yeah, and on page 1 in the memo, that red section, it's asking you to consider. There are 2 separate lenses. Remodel in the guidelines and new construction. And a lot of the analysis on the subsequent pages 2 and 3 are under the lens of new construction because it seemed like it's basically that.
But. So if you look at the guidelines, every section has an existing building and new construction section with a little different lens of what to look through. I mean, basically, almost all of them have that.
But they're getting
And-
the parking benefit as it's an existing building.
The parking exception
That's
for
what they're
the
trying to
existing
do.
building.
Exactly.
Shouldn't we stay in the existing building box?
Well, so if we
That's the
do,
question.
that's the question. And if we do that, then it changes how we view this proposal pretty drastically because the existing building box, to use your words, says restore what you have. Well, what we have is an
Nothing.
overhead door and a storefront entry and very different looking storefront window. You know, what we have is very different than the proposal that they have. So I guess if the planning commission is leaning towards viewing it as a restoration, then I think we need to go back to the drawing board and get more information. If the planning commission is open to viewing this as new construction, then I think we have enough here to kind of draw some conclusions and make recommendations.
You said restoration. That's different than remodeling.
I'm using the words interchangeably.
Restoration would seem like it would have to return to its
So the guidelines,
self,
the
but
guidelines say existing building, new construction. we can use those words. Whether it's restoration, remodeling, what have you.
Former Commissioner Vern Fisher, that's how he built his house. He kept at least one wall standing. Got the same
I
footprint,
feel like it's a Dodge.
Yeah.
but no walls that were.
The the council had brought a couple of us, Jennifer and I came up and spoke about parking due to this particular development, that the original design. I'm not sure, you know, they were, I mean, the mayor and I forget, somebody else was quite keen on, you know, trying to find you know, other parking for that other design. And then we were talking about, you know, having a parking plan, a general parking plan throughout the whole, you know, riverfront development. And I'm not sure if, you know, what has gone since that time. Is there anything, any movement on that?
I mean, it's irrelevant.
Cause they've thrown that away.
I mean,
And then
well,
come back with this.
they talked about exploring surface parking. And it wasn't really directly for, it was just in general. Surface parking, potential reorientation of angled parking on St. Helens. And it's been added to the to-do list.
Doesn't help us right now with the proposal. You know, we have a building permit submitted.
And ultimately,
I'm just lamenting the whole, you know, the
Yeah.
design from the beginning.
Okay,
So, I mean, we can kind of go through these and consider the ramifications of like both options, you know, the existing building category and new construction category. Or if you guys have strong feelings now. Looking for guidance.
I think you should let the applicant talk. You know, maybe
Is he on-
their discussion will help
Is he
shape your
there?
thoughts.
Applicants there.
Yep. Yeah, he's on Zoom.
We just
Hey,
didn't
here.
want to ignore this detail.
Hi, Will, we can hear you.
Hey, everyone.
let's hear from the applicant.
My name's William Blocker. You know, a lot of what we're saying, yeah, the construction means and methods of having to do this as a phased project is not advantageous to the client whatsoever. However, we're trying to keep that parking variance. And so we've been kind of forced to, you know, and we've worked with Jacob and Mike and trying to figure out how we can replace this building because it is falling apart to some degree. But we also want to build something to current building codes and standards. So essentially that does require us to replace the walls and roof one by one as a phased approach. So it's just to kind of back up the architectural character review. I think what Jenny's getting at is, do you guys see this as a remodel, even though it's a one-for-one replacement? Or do you see this as a new construction because the exterior is being touched on all sides? So I think that would better help direct where this conversation needs to go.
Yeah, and existing buildings, the focus is usually on restoring the existing or original appearance, where new construction is about compatibility with the surrounding area. You know, that's kind of the flavor of each chapter of the guidelines.
So if we look at it as new construction, does that then impact what's already been decided for the parking? Is this decision going to impact later decisions as far as the building permit goes?
They won't have their exception. New construction.
I would venture that if we're trying to meet the new construction versus a remodel as it relates to architectural character view, I don't think that should be that should override the variance, because those are two different things completely. Because this is the building permit is a building alteration. So one-for-one replacement is not new construction. So that has to be, that cannot be changed. But if the commission needs to make a motion that, yes, we recognize this is a building alteration. However, we recommend that the architectural character guidelines follow a new construction standard.
Thank you. That was my question.
And I think, you know, one of the elements that we don't know, and I don't know if we'll ever know, is what was the state of the building when it was purchased by the current owner? Was it already in a state that may have been beyond a practical restoration project? You know, that's what we really don't know.
I mean, unless you shopped there, when it was Gracie's, and then you were kind of like, ooh, we better get out of here. To be honest,
It fell into disrepair many years ago.
oh yeah,
And so I think I wouldn't lose sight of that.
But it's non-historic, non-contributing. It happens to be in a historic neighborhood. Is that what you're saying?
just the Riverfront District, right?
Yeah, the reason we're here tonight is it's in the Riverfront District.
Right.
Yeah. Not because it's a landmark.
Right.
If it's a landmark, this would be a hearing, and
Yeah,
this whole, hey, we have some latitude to think both ways, it wouldn't be like that if it was historic structure.
Just making sure, because there's, so we get it, it's not. So,
if it had been that way, they would have, you've been telling them that they had to, keep it up to date
Yeah, and
all along, so it wouldn't come to this state.
yeah,
So just even just looking at the elevation that they want to propose and what's existing. It's almost the same answer, compatibility and restoration, is similar.
in some cases it is, yes. But in some cases it's not, like the existing storefront windows, right? Like that, we would be saying, no, you need to retain these windows, not all new ones. Like that's a very different approach. New door, new storefront windows, new transoms. It's virtually an entirely new storefront.
But if we did,
this is for, I mean, it's not just for looks, it's for efficiency.
Yeah, and like Will said, to meet new building codes, maybe these things they're really inefficient windows and they have to replace them anyway for energy standards. I don't know, but
It's for, the dockside is, to me, in my mind, comparable, because it's not historic. It's in the district. What do we require of that? Because they put new windows in that building. So I mean, it's, to me, it's like a guideline.
but they matched them.
yeah, they had an existing door and they had a new door. They had existing windows and they put in new windows. This is, I mean, if you look, it's a new location, it's new,
But they,
everything is different. It's just, yeah. So I mean, I think to Dan's point, though, it does change some of it quite a bit when you look through the different lenses.
Yeah, I guess it's
So the real question is, are you okay with the new construction? That's what the applicant's proposing. That's what most of this memo is reviewing it under.
And not these architectural features just right now. I mean, he's looking at more of a general guidance to if you could go ahead with the replacement of wall for wall for wall for wall, and then these other details are just they're secondary right now. So,
Like for parking and things like that and the.
well, I'm talking about the window, the slide or folding windows and all that.
well, secondary because we have to.
That's on for tonight's discussion. Yeah.
it's all part of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's
That's
I
what
do
I
wanna-
was thinking you're saying.
critical. That's a critical part of the discussion.
I do want to point out, part of the building permit and dealing with structural requirements and shear walls, we can't do a 1-for-1 replacement on the windows. Because we do have return walls at the corners and the center line also requires 4 feet. So, we are limited to what windows we can use and wear. And then speaking about the existing windows themselves, they're single pane, they're failing. Nothing nothing can really be reused on the existing building.
I get the replacement of the windows. But so you're saying that you couldn't
So
just,
yeah, on
couldn't
the left
replace
and
these
right
windows.
side.
You couldn't replace these windows in size with new windows, efficient windows, because of where the wall, the center wall needs to be, and
Correct, there are some structural requirements on the left and right side of the east elevation and the center line, about 4 feet in width at each location. We need structural panels.
The only thing that just glares out at me is that all the buildings down here have that space below the windows. None of them have to the floor windows. No business in Old Town has windows that go clear to the ground.
Yeah, and that's something I point out, even for new construction.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
generic. The
Be
Riverfront District, we
very
would,
different.
we would be thinking about that overall in brand new construction.
So then maybe you're thinking of a hybrid where you're
Where it's
thinking
the
of
style of,
the compatibility, but then retaining
the style
some of
and
those core
character.
elements that are in the existing
look
building.
of
that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, the look of it, not measured inch per inch, but the feel of it. Because
Yeah.
Look at all that they've done to the Muckle building and all that they've done in front of City Hall and what Jennifer's done to the building across the road and all the way down the First Street, all those have that space underneath the windows.
So this,
Yes.
in particular, it's a paneled bulkhead under the storefront window and it's also, this is the Muckle building just down the street. So for Will, who can't see my screen, we're looking at the Morgus building next door and the Muckle building on the corner.
And the Mickle building doesn't have as much space, but there is still space. below.
Still space. Nobody has glass that goes clear to the ground.
So I think from a new construction and the existing building.
The feel of the
standards.
building should be similar to its neighbors.
Which is the same as compatibility,
Yeah.
really, in this, because it'll be like
The windows might be sized differently and shaped differently and spaced out differently, but they would still have space underneath and look like they were at least cousins to what their neighbors are.
So listen,
What's there now, right?
Yeah.
With this existing plaster finish area.
Yeah, because I understand they don't make windows like that anymore and people don't do that. New
so
construction.
is it possible to have their this folding door window things functionally that way, but would look like they have a kick plate and a window above?
I don't know, Will, have you seen something like that?
I have not, but that's worth searching for if, you know, we're trying to create that illusion that there's a continuous wainscot. You know, I think that's not a bad idea at all. I'll have to look into that.
That would keep that architectural look.
But you
Yeah.
still have the folding door.
That would have a big problem with that as far as compatibility with the vintage look, basically. All of it, they weren't, no, aluminum windows and doors and. I don't know.
I mean, I think we're touching on the main question that's posed in the memo, which is just about those storefront windows and the entry. All the other components, the awnings, you know, the transom windows. They're all kind of met.
And this would still have to go through all the fire stuff
Oh, yeah.
for access and egress and all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. Because I noticed there was a lot of openings on the surrounding building, the sides and back. A lot of openings disappeared.
Oh, you're talking about the man doors that?
Yeah, lots of different openings went away. So I want to make sure that meets all the fire stuff.
Building
And that
official-
was partly a reason of removing them because the fire separation distance is less than 3 feet.
Oh, okay.
And so, yep.
But you still
And
have a second, on the west elevation, there's still another door proposed for.
Right, that's just relocating a door. So if it's 2 tenants versus 1 tenant, that can be a little shared anteroom that for exiting for both tenants, or it's just for 1 tenant. So keeping it open to what that future tenant could be on the west side.
But there's not space between, it's just a firewall.
On the north and south, yeah.
Yeah.
And then a majority of the other elevations are, I think you included either wood siding or an improved fiber cement siding with a wood grain texture. So both were in this application. If the commission has strong feelings, we've allowed cement board before. I don't know if you have strong feelings, but obviously what was there before is wood.
Mr. Shoemaker didn't like it, but she accepted it.
Yeah, well, especially when you have existing wood and you're trying to match.
Yeah.
If it's all new, the bakes are pretty good now.
Yeah, maintenance is certainly easier.
And down here with the wind and the rain and everything, maintenance is an issue.
So the door would have to be styled with the kick plate kind of style too.
And it's proposed with a kick plate, yep.
Okay,
So two,
that's enough.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought the door was fine, but the windows.
It's a little, it looks very foreign for lots of, for down here on,
It's like a modern building.
yeah.
Doesn't fit the architectural standards that were compatible with the surrounding buildings. Other transom windows, what's the transom window design? What's that? What is that? Can you tell us, Will?
Those are the windows right above the metal awning. So they exist on the existing elevation and then also on the proposed, which fits the guidelines. And the guidelines prefer a metal awning over fabric as well.
So what is the I guess you get the placement of them, but what are they made of? What do they look like?
Those would be metal awnings. I mean, they're
Oh, the windows,
identical to what the Old Town guidelines recommend.
the windows, the transom windows.
The transom windows,
Yeah.
they're just regular windows. They're just
Fixed
based on
windows.
position above, yeah, an entry. Getting more light into the space.
Do what you needed.
I think so. There's one more question about the brick. So there's a proposed brick wainscot, that's kind of this bottom area here. Whenever you're using brick in new construction, you want to have it match the surrounding brick, and so you have a very great example next door. So we're just making sure it's noted that it's that antique red.
Yeah.
The brick idea was the owner's idea was brick.
Yeah, it's proposed. That's what,
Yeah, it's in lieu of the existing plaster finish.
yeah, so where there's plaster here.
After I've grown accustomed to that, the new rocks, wainscoting that has went on those buildings up on Columbia across from IGA. All that rock work you did up there.
Oh.
That's all.
At first it looked
Yeah.
funny, but now it's like I've grown accustomed to it and it's like, yeah, people would put that in there as a suggestion box. There's something's been done, the basalt's very familiar as an option for people that maybe rock's not a deal for them, or brick's not a deal. But
think
it's all
brick-
good if it matches the neighborhood.
I think brick is better for this location.
And it would match the mortgage building.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can include a note on the plans that it will.
yeah.
And then they have gooseneck lighting, the guidelines like on their signboard here. They also have some wall sconces.
Yeah, that looks very modern.
And the guidelines say don't have those direct upwards. So staff recommended having a condition about that they're either
Light pollution.
and glare going up. But yeah, if you have a thought about that, I think they were on the Muckle too, those responses.
There's some
Yeah,
there.
those wall sconces are in the Old Town guidelines too, and those would be directed down for pedestrian, for illuminating the pedestrian path.
Yeah,
Didn't they put some of those on the Sugar Creek too?
I don't, maybe.
I thought there was some on the front there. I haven't been down there in the dark.
They look good at night, though. I think that's everything in red. I sort of am capturing your recommendation about the windows as, you know, recommending that the applicant come back with a more traditional storefront window that has a or paneled bulkhead look. And if it's something that we feel questionable out, we can always bring it back to you. It's kind of pushing that boundary.
You can do the folding action. As long as it looked like it was. Had that foot kick plate at the bottom.
When it's fully closed.
Yeah. That's the point of it, right?
Want me to make a recommendation, or we have to make a motion? Discussion item.
Well,
It's still a motion, but I don't.
you want to do a motion, then do you want a motion,
So I think the
something?
motion would just be that you recommend it's compatible with the guidelines as discussed.
and incompatible with the surrounding buildings? Was that the same thing?
Kind of capture our first part of the conversation. I think we're doing a hybrid.
Yeah,
So I move that we accept with following the guidelines that we've previously discussed.
Second that.
and how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay, hopefully that helps you.
No, it did. Thank you. All right, thanks, Will.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Will. Planning Commission term expirations.
Okay, so we gotta pick on the Deans, the Dans and the Davids. So those are the two people whose expirations are coming up. David's not here, so we'll just need to ask him offline if he wants to continue. He's just finishing a partial term, and so if he would like to continue, it's just an automatic. Dan, on the other hand, has served well over 2 consecutive terms.
15 years. And I do have to say that I'm not returning next year.
Okay,
You retire from the commission. You have to find yourself another chairman.
I was surprised.
so Dan the man is riding off into the sunset. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what we need to know. So then we'll, and we actually, we have several new applicants in the pool already since our 2 newest. But we'll still need to re-advertise and go through that, so we'll let city recorder know that Dan is going bye-bye. And then we'll need to confirm with David, because David served so little so far, I'm assuming he's gonna continue, but you know, we need to make sure.
I do like working with you guys and it's a good commission to be on. My time's up.
Put a lot of time in, so.
Yeah.
We understand.
Yeah.
We're bummed.
What are you gonna do with your second Tuesdays?
That part's easy.
That's a lot of time.
He'll serve on advisory committees.
Yes,
Well,
I definitely want to be involved with things I want to be interested in, so.
When I left retail, I felt funny. I felt funny, not working the day after Thanksgiving.
Mm.
I don't think about my old job at all.
You know, Dan,
Sometimes I do, but
they've been talking about reinstating a tourism committee.
yeah,
Yeah.
If you really want,
there isn't a tourism committee, there's just
there hasn't been
a
one of those for many
tourism
years.
person.
They had a committee.
it sounds like it could be
Right up
quite
your
lively.
alley.
It would be something different if I were involved.
Well, Darren, I'm sorry to hear you going.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad about leaving you guys in the lurch, not very many experienced people, but you're here at least.
Jennifer can do
And
it. She's ready.
Been here for a while.
Yeah, Shoemaker's now the veteran.
Senior. I think the last two that left were 14 years, I think. They reached 14 years. Never.
Sheila,
Like that, Sheila.
Who's gonna be your chair?
Maybe-
Charlie will do it.
I thought Jennifer was like the
I
vice
think,
chair.
I
right?
think
Wouldn't
Jennifer
we-
likes being vice chair.
She doesn't really want to run, but she did okay when she did it. She said it wasn't that bad.
She did good.
She's amazing.
She's a logical.
That was the
chair.
next step.
She's the logical chair.
But it's not to be asked. I decided this several months ago, but waiting till the last possible minute. It was the right time.
See if lightning would strike.
But at least no, we didn't get out the broom to,
Unless you actually wanted me out of here anyway.
Interview.
we're sweeping you out the door now.
Well, Russ Lowe's back. He got back last Friday.
Oh, yeah. Does he want to reapply?
I don't know. I haven't talked to him, so.
I thought he was on the ballot.
So that's Russ Hubbard.
Russ Hubbard, two Russes, my bad. I get confused. It's like the man on the end.
We lost one Russ and then got another. We're Rustless now.
I feel like he wasn't here that long.
Wrestlers.
Yeah, Rustless. Okay.
Well, we'll go on down the line here.
Yeah.
Still the questions.
You got all that right, Christina?
Got it. Sure did.
I want to see that verbatim.
Subcommittee technicality, what's?
Okay, so we get excited about simple words and, you know, what does adjacent mean and all these things that we've covered. So once again, and thanks Scott and the Parks Commission for
You can thank Dana. She went down a rabbit hole and she researched a bunch of the state laws requiring about subcommittees and all that. And it's in plain reading of that seems like you could not have any subcommittees or anything like that unless you go through the whole process of advertising, having it recorded and all that. So.
yeah, so there's, you know, whether or not it's a meeting and a gathering of less than a quorum is not a meeting, quote unquote. However, members of a governing body should not gather as a group composed of less than a quorum for the purposes of conducting business outside of public meetings law. So that's where we get into the issue is public meetings law. So right now, the advice that we have, and there, you know, there may be a change of law, but at this point, as Scott kind of suggested, subcommittee meetings need to be treated as public meetings with notices, packets, open to the public record, minutes taking, etc. So I think going forward for your subcommittee interests, you will want to research that stuff independently. And then when we have meetings with time, talk about your burning desires. Then
I did, when we had our annual report, asked the council to have the city attorney look at the meetings laws and give us advice on it. So we'd have, because there are financial penalties for some of this stuff. And give us advice of attorney protection. Give us advice on it, so we could use that as advice of attorney protection ourselves.
so, I mean, luckily, you know, the subcommittee effort, other than the camping stuff, but that's all long gone. Although it is kind of ironic that technically those are secret meetings that happened.
Yeah.
Oh, what is this that Mr. Trotsky was talking about, this special top secret committee deciding how to zone our city without our knowledge?
Yeah, let's get into that. Let's finish this item.
But I mean, you were talking about subcommittee, so he talked about something I had no idea was
Okay, well,
happening.
yeah, it's not a subcommittee.
It can't be.
It's the consultant team helping us with our grant program, update the economic opportunities analysis.
I knew about
They-
that, but he described it in a way that seemed foreign to me.
I think he's concerned about some of the preliminary suggestions of the consultant team, and that's what he's expressing.
Okay,
At least that's my read of it. I don't want to put words in someone's mouth.
okay.
But
Go ahead.
these are gonna be things that we all discussed, it's gonna be something that goes before the planning commission.
Lots
for
of steps,
adoption, and-
lots of steps between.
Yeah.
And joint planning commission, city council meetings that are open to the public and watchable if you're not at the meeting. Too, to just,
So would
Every
this
secret-
subcommittee meeting preclude one of us from going and doing homework about one of these proactive items? I go and talk to the people with Main Street and find out some stuff about vacant storefronts, and I stop and ask Jennifer a couple questions and we bring it back to the meeting. Is that a subcommittee meeting?
If you ask Jennifer Shoemaker, I would, with the reading I've, because we were read all this out at our meeting. And from plain text reading again is that if we deliberate, that's deliberation, you are in violation.
Yeah, so the issue covered is that the public is supposed to know how a body came to a decision, including the analysis and thoughts that led up to that. And so those questions between commissioners can constitute that effort that leads up to the
You might
decision.
want to discuss that with the other group that meets in this room.
And now, if it's an
Make
other
sure everybody
group,
knows, make sure everybody knows,
I
you know,
think they
that
have
we're all following the rules. That's
a
all.
moratorium on the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, cause it's like, it's all new to me and I've been in this room for a long time.
yeah, this stuff, and I mean, the subcommittee stuff really, it really didn't become that much of a phenomenon until the camping stuff. That's what resulted in, well, let's have a formal subcommittee list or proactive list, excuse me. And that's when the subcommittee stuff really started taking shape. And then the Parks Commission, started taking that charge too, because they have different parks and stuff they looked at. And so there hasn't been such effort that has brought it to the top as it has now. So here we are.
The camping subcommittee did a lot of subcommittee in secret.
There was, yeah.
of one, subcommittee of one.
Yes.
Let's say, for instance, if we decided that we were going to work on, say, the plaza, and each person had one thing to do as homework and then brought their findings back to a meeting, that wouldn't be considered.
No, that's perfectly fine.
So that way we can still get things done.
That
Yeah,
was,
it's just the discussion as a group, the efforts as a group. That's what you want to try to make sure is in this room where we have all the infrastructure of the public notice, the minutes. the public
I mean, it
accessibility.
was never about a secret, it was about staff time.
Yeah, and these
It's
meetings.
always about staff
have
time.
Items that have to be addressed at certain times with public hearings, and sometimes they go long.
Right, it was about staff time, because it's like, it's one thing if we want to take on stuff, but to add burdens to staff is something that we try not to do.
And at the time, we had a lot of very long meetings.
so we'll have to look at the subcommittee rules that we already did because they were designed to have subcommittee meetings outside of this.
Can't do that.
That's a good point. The adopted
Proactive rules.
proactive items, yeah.
Yeah, that was the point of having a subcommittee. So we didn't take much time in the meeting to do it.
Pretty soon, we're gonna have a whole new commission that won't even remember the adoption of that.
Yeah.
Almost there.
So we just, this came up recently. We wanted to make sure we had this discussion. To keep everybody out of hot water.
Yeah, that could be my problem. December. That's why I went to the coast this last weekend. I kept thinking about different violations I had done. You know, I feed on these things, they're not my problem. I think I've done enough.
I do that with power, so
Yeah.
I can understand what you're talking about.
Okay, any discussion or things you wanted to ask about from the activity report? Read all these director decisions.
Nothing too major in the director decisions this month. Small things.
Yeah, that the bridge thing behind the Lower Columbia.
Little footbridge.
Yeah, how did that work out? Where's your decision making?
It was pretty simple. It's, it's interesting because if it was public land, conceivably, it could be exempt, but it's private. So technically, there's a permit, but, there's no impact. So it's just it looks good kind of thing.
It's not open to the public. Trail.
I mean, not technically, I think,
Talk to 'em.
I spoke to Andrew Nemi, who's the principal of Lower Columbia, and he says he lets people like the CCMH campus is next door. He says he lets those people walk on it. But it's not something that, hey, public can just hang out here.
Isn't there some public land around there, around Nolte Creek? I vaguely remember somebody's.
Right in that immediate area?
Yeah, some type.
It's going right through the creek.
Not that I can think of offhand. The port did have some, but that was sold.
Okay. Well,
Do you have waterfront update? What's happening out there? See lots of stuff in the newspaper about where the waterfront is, how long the front of City Hall is gonna be blocked. How long you won't be able to drive around the building? Do we have any idea?
Strand Street's been closed for how long now? 2 weeks? 3 weeks? They anticipated at least 1 month when they closed it, so I think we're nearing that. There's a paved date.
Since the barricades went up, I've just avoided downtown.
For Strand,
I do not come down here unless it's for a meeting or I have an appointment because of the parking situation and trying to move and get in and out. I figure I can get it somewhere else until they move the barricades. So I just wondered how much longer. I think a lot of people are like, oh, this is too hard. I'll come back later.
the Riverwalk Trail's closed too, right? Access to it.
I'm not certain. It was open last time. You can get to it at the end of Strand and walk over. But that might be old news now. I don't remember.
Couldn't tell.
Moving, there's a lot of concrete getting poured.
Yeah,
It's
that's
kind of impressive. If you look out
neat.
this way and turn the corner,
Yeah,
there's a lot of changes.
like to look.
You're really starting to see the shape of things.
Yeah.
We're starting to get past just that raw clearing.
It just looks like, to me, it just looks like concrete. It looks like a big parking lot when I look out there. Cause I just realized the other day with all the grass gone and trees gone, the little bit of trees that you could see from this corner, it's like, ooh, that's a lot of paving.
A lot of clearing of the Riverwalk Trail. But the grades aren't anywhere close, right? So
Yeah, in the upper part.
walls to build.
2 of the retaining walls are completely built out of 4. The remaining 2, they're pouring the footings this week. And then they'll start forming the walls. So the other 2 are concrete that they're working on, but the Gabion rock wall, they're all done. So you can actually walk on to the ramp, go down to the boat docks and look up and see the.
It's hard because, as a citizen, you can't walk through it, but for work, I've been able to walk through and
You
see.
can go through the county parking lot and walk around.
Yeah, and
It's all
there's so
accessible
much to
still
see
to
and
both.
so many
Docks
things.
are open to the public.
I peeked around there.
Yeah.
And there's so much that you walk through and you're like, whoa, I didn't even think about this is needed and this is needed, and walking through it's really interesting.
What I like about it
Progress.
is the Gabions wall. Hopefully the river won't ever get up to that point, because Gabions and water bodies don't do well together. They fall apart. You have big wire mesh and rocks everywhere.
Our designers did their job.
They peel the scales off of fish too. Fish
You
fuel.
didn't have some teenagers out there that pick up that live webcam from the waterfront. What are they doing today? Like they do with the eagle's nest?
Oh, we have drone footage every other couple of weeks and we're gonna compile it all in
Oh, that's cool.
video.
I thought that it's like you don't want to get down here and get in a construction mess, but you're like, is that street open yet? Oh, look what they're doing today. So then you could look.
Gabions are good walls if it's not a retaining wall for water. It's erosion.
It's set back pretty far from the.
It's not for erosion. Just. I mean to diss them, just Not good for
We're
Rick.
happy with how they look.
You tell me what does that word mean?
This,
No,
Gabion?
I'd never heard that word before.
It's like a mesh metal container that's filled with rocks.
Okay.
They're just a bunch of cubes filled.
I've seen them. I just didn't know what they were called.
they're inexpensive.
They're cheaper than concrete, and so we have,
Things inexpensive now.
And the good thing about them is the water can go through them.
How is it different than riprap? Like
Smaller
when they
stuff.
lay all that
they're
stuff
structural,
or contained
yeah.
Yeah, it'd be real shape, defined shape.
or controlled.
Riprap is generally where water can erode to it. So that's more durable than. People used to use gabions for bank erosion. They're found to be really bad. Or it's pulling up, the wires would rust and then you just have wire mess and nothing.
You could give talks at the library. That's what you could do
On its Tuesdays.
It's Tuesdays, yes.
on
That's a good.
wetland preservation,
Scientist.
wetland preservation, native plants.
I could do all that.
Scappoose Bay in there, or the plant people at Scappoose High School in there to help you. Teach people how to plant native plants, save water.
I got other things planned. I don't have to plan. I'm not looking. for anything. Okay, I don't think we're gonna be doing proactive items because everybody that wanted to talk about them are not here. Working on it. Is that correct? Okay. For your information, items. So speaking of subcommittees, or not subcommittees, but PAC committees. PAC
Oh.
committees. What was our trail from Scappoose to St. Helens there? We're gonna have that.
Still in ODOT's hands. We're still waiting on a contract.
I've been doing some thinking about it.
Okay. Well, if it's December and we still haven't started, you can share your ideas and I'll convey them.
I can share your ideas, even if I'm not in planning.
Yeah, it's true.
I can still be on the TAC committee, right?
Yeah.
Good. All right. Anybody have any for information items? Great. Counselor? No, sir. Just ignored the counselor one time and he didn't like that. Make sure that you have a chance.
I'll take it.
I just want to remind you, the joint meeting is the 25th. The agenda is police station site selection. I don't know a lot about the background. But the mayor wanted that on there, and then just proactive items. And I think proactive items will be kind of the default thing to talk about.
Are we gonna get any material on the police sites?
Well, it was just a request of the mayor.
Yeah, I don't know the context.
So I should contact him. See if he has any.
Can't have any.
Subcommittee.
No,
I'm just kidding. I don't know. If you want.
I
We don't
kind of might
know.
be able to fill you in on that. The current is the 18th Street, right, where the
old PGE
the old
building.
PGE building. That was the go-to with the planning commission. And then there's also opened up on Gable Road. The school district bought the property. I think it's the old farm that's there, and
There was horses on the property for years.
yeah, and I don't know if that person passed away or whatever, but the school district bought that and they've got property all the way back to, I believe, Furlock Park. And they're interested in building a practice facility there, an indoor practice facility, which leaves the front end of that. So that's something we could potentially look at, but I think that the main focus right now is still on 18th Street.
Yes.
There's just some, financials to navigate, I think, on that one, on both of them. Really.
So here's the high school. And then it's this linear piece here without a lot of houses on it. It's zoned apartment residential. And interestingly, it was on the market for a bit and we get occasional questions. And some people, were looking at it for another apartment complex. And then the school district ended up buying it. So people's fears about more apartments, at least there, at least are resolved. And so that's what Mark is mentioning. So just here on the west side of the high school. It does abut Gable Road. There are some residential properties in between, but it abuts the athletic fields on the south side, closer to Furlock.
So how about the property to the west of JJ excavating? That some clearing is
The
happening.
auto property, that's what that is, the auto property.
I
That's
know
the
there's
name.
wetland issues there, but some wetland issues.
So what's your question on this one?
It might be a good place for a police station.
Oh, I see.
Isn't that where they're having the, doing storage there now?
No, it's vacant. It was kind of cleared out, I think, because to help control trespassing, but the storage is here.
Close.
Yeah, adjacent.
There's wetlands on both sides of that property, east and west edge. The wetland by the apartments, when it goes into that property. And then the wetland from the excavating goes into that property.
Yeah, we've never received many inquiries about the auto property over the years, just a little bit.
Seems big enough for the police station.
Oh, it's more than big enough, yeah.
Is it zoned light industrial?
It's zoned
General commercial,
commercial.
general commercial.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the last remaining large general commercial properties.
Yeah, this is zoned apartment residential, which would have to be rezoned. But anyways, that may be part of the discussion.
Okay. If there's no other information items,